Hello everyone, my name is Zero Turd, and I'm a big fan of Decked Out. However, there's a few things that I wanted to change about it, so I'm going to show them to you today. The first modification that I made was to the map. Because this is on Hermitcraft Season 9, and I want to do some exploring, but still want to do Deck Out, I need to know when Decked Out was available. So I changed the map so that the cards turn blue when the game is available, and when we put a shard in, they'll turn to red, indicating that someone is using the game at the moment. This change is fairly easy to implement. I simply pulled off of the available line on the back of the display here and routed that out to the map, where I can then dump water over the red nylium when the game is available, as seen here with these trapdoors and below. The next modification I made was to add the wishing well that Tingo talked about a few times. So in case you can't find a key, you can give the well 6 coins, 3 embers, 2 crowns, or 1 key. And get 1 key to the Caves of Carnage. The main purpose for being able to pay 1 key is in case a key falls into the well, the user can still, or the player can still get a key. Boop. Implementing this change wasn't too hard, I just had to add in the Tingo shop circuit into the wishing well. So here we have the hoppers that collect the items, the item filter, then the cost portion, so 1 key, 6 coins, and then there is an automatic reset in here so that a user can do 6 coins and immediately after 3 embers, which is personally a really bad deal. You should just use your embers, not keys. And then there's a little chime circuit and a torch tower that goes up to the top to drop off the keys. And something I want to make sure of is that you couldn't reach that dispenser from up here and cheese it. So it's in a pretty good place. The next change that I made was a pretty large one. So if we come over to the Frost, Ember, and Treasure Drop Floor Selector location here, we have Tingo's existing system. And this system had a few faults with it. For instance, you can't go down a level, back up a level, and back down a level without putting the system out of sync, because it relies on knowing when the artifact drop happens. The other shortcoming is that you could exploit some of the cards that rely on you going deeper, such as Fuzzy Bunny Slippers and Deep Frost. So you could throw multiple keys in at level 1 and have it drop a lot of Frost Embers all over the dungeon. And so to fix this, I changed the system from using a long pulse to indicate going deeper and a short pulse to indicate going up, and the artifact pickup line to know when to change direction, to having a specific pulse length for every level. So level 1 is a short repeater, and level 4 here is a long repeater. We're going to simulate the game being on. It'll automatically kick in and go to level 1, and then the user would throw the key in and it goes to level 2. Then they go up to level 3, and finally they're at level 4. And level 3 and 4 behave the same. I didn't change that behavior. But now let's say that they don't hit the sensor coming out of level 4, and somehow they get through level 3 and are back on level 2 now. This system can actually skip right to level 2 from level 4, or they can even go 1 and skip back over to 3. So it's a pretty robust system that you can't exploit. There are probably less complicated ways to implement this system, but because the pulse decoder gives out a pulse for which level it found instead of a steady state, I had to add a few other systems on here. So the first part in here is the pulse length decoder. So this takes advantage of torches taking 2 ticks to turn off, and so you have observer chain 1 and observer chain 2 that generate a pulse 1 tick off from each other. it will then pulse this section here, which will decode that specific pulse into a strength and have a memory circuit to hold that. And then it goes into a signal strength decoder so that only one position can be active at a time. And I use a cauldron with a signal strength of 1 into the system here so that it can turn on the existing part. So technically Tingo's system is here and my system is here, but I have cut out Tingo's inputs so that it doesn't interfere with the new system. So, as I had mentioned, this change affects the card processor. Let's go over there and see what changes I needed to make. So before, the long pulse would indicate that the player is going deeper into the game and needs to trigger the cards that are affected by it, such as Deep Frost and Funny Buzzes Zippers. So now I have the same pulse decoder set up. If I knock out this torch, which simulates the game being on, I can come over here and give it a 2 pulse tick, which will say I'm going to level 2. And if the user, for some reason, throws another key in, it'll give it the same 2 pulse, but because the block has already been moved, the observer won't trigger, and so the effect is not dropped again. And they can continue on to level 3. They'll come back to level 2, and then back to level 1, which doesn't trigger anything, and then they finish the game. And the whole thing resets. The last 2 changes that I made were in the card processor. So if we come up here, we can see I've added in a suppress card count line off of recycle as active. So when recycle is active, no items are allowed to move between the droppers and hoppers, preserving the individual card length. I did have to move the card played line over so that I could squeeze this one in here, but it works very well. And the last change I made was to the B-Sense card. There was a case where if the user or the player died while B-Sense was active, the next player would get B-Sense for a few cards. And so I added in the game reset line here to reset B-Sense count when it's off. And that is all the modifications that I've made.